Today's video is talking the latest Detroit Lions news and rumors. We're going to be getting into what Rod Wood spoke to the media about. He talked about multiple subjects. Break that down, give you my thoughts. Another trade idea popped up on Detroit Lions SI. We're going to go through that trade, review it, give you my thoughts and what I think about that trade. Get into the offensive line as there could be a shuffle going forward. And second-year player, Ennis Rakestraw. We'll talk about him and what he means to the team going forward because Brad Holmes spoke about it. But before we get into the video, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Let's get to 85,300. That's just 49 away. That's all you got to do. And we're dropping news and rumors every single day. So if you're a Lions fan, lock on in and subscribe to the channel. Let's start with Rod Wood. He made an interesting statement. Let's break it down here. He said, with the year before, we didn't have any injuries. Wood told reporters at the annual league meeting Wednesday. I was talking to Dan Campbell about this the other day, and I don't know if you saw The World According to Garp. There's a scene where Robin Williams and Glenn Close are shopping a house, and they've gone through it, and they put all the sidewalk looking at it, and the plane crashes into the house, and Robin Williams says, we'll take it. That will never happen again. Wood continued on, we're looking at all of that stuff. The training staff, do we need to dial back practices at different times later in the season? I'm really pushing Vice President of NFL Broadcast and Planning, Scheduling Mike North to give us a mid-season bye this year so what we don't have to play 14 games in a row without a break. So there's all of those kinds of things that we are looking at. He made two statements there. First, he said basically that we will not have injuries ever again that occurred last year. I disagree with that statement. I think you have to prepare as if you're going to have mass injuries, and that's, having good depth on there. To say that it's not going to happen is ridiculous because we're not Nostradamus and cannot see the future. What is it likely we're going to have a lot of injuries like last year? No, it's not likely, but to say it's never going to happen is not true. Then he talked about trying to get a bye week in the middle of the season, and I 100% concur and agree with him. Hopefully that does come through because to have a early bye like we did is really tough on these players. So I agree with him right there. Again, subscribe to the channel. 49 more, and we'll get to 85,300. Let's continue on here and talk about Brad Holmes speaking on Ennis Rakestraw. He says, this just brings me back to the roots of everybody doubting me and not believing that a kid from West Dallas can do this, Rakestraw said during the end of the season press conference. So I'm just appreciative he gave me in the back, and I'll use it off season. I better promises. I knew that he had to be in the corner, Holmes expressed. That's not anything against Rakestraw. We're still excited about Rakestraw, but unfortunately, he had injuries, and he wasn't healthy enough to provide a little bit more clarity in terms of where he's going to be. So I don't think it's going to be a rational for us to depend on him. Rakestraw, second-year player here. I liked him. I thought this was a great draft pick. And he didn't contribute due to injuries, and I guess, that's just bad luck. I mean, everybody had injuries last year. When it comes to Rakestraw, what he brings to the Detroit Lions this year is depth, and he's not required to be thrown into a starter position. With the acquisitions that we did this offseason, and of course what we have currently as starters, you talk like Amik Robertson, right? And obviously Terry Arnold. He doesn't need to be pushed in that position. He can 100% get healthy and get ready for the season. There's a couple things about this situation about Ennis that one obviously you like and one you don't dislike here. We'll start with the dislike first because I think the positive is a little bit better. Obviously injury. We don't like that. We don't depend on injury players, right? It was his first year. He could barely play, dealing with the hamstrings and everything. And that's concerning from a fan standpoint and obviously a roster. You can't depend on it. That's why they picked up some corners. And I kind of wish they would have did that with the defensive line a little bit more, but I fully expect them to do that in the draft. But on the flip side, here's the positive part of it. You're basically having another second-round pick. He's like Jamison Williams. Didn't get basically utilized year one at all. So it's almost as we got another second-round pick because he hardly played at all. So that's the good and the bad for Rakestraw. He's got a lot of competition. You know, we picked up corners in free agency, Rocky Sin, TJ Reed. He's going to make the team clearly, but he's got competition. He's got to prove himself. You got to go out there and stay on the field and stay healthy. We had a player that we drafted, and we all thought, at least I did, I liked Futu Melifonwu coming out of college. He had high potential. He is good on the field, especially when it comes to blitzes. But the problem is the best ability is availability, and he wasn't available, and we don't want the same problem to happen to Rakestraw. It's early in his career. I expect him to bounce back and come in this season, be healthy, and if he needs to play, he should be ready to play. Again, go ahead and sub to the channel. We're trying to get to 85,300. With your help, it can happen. Let's go ahead and jump and talk about the offensive line. Dan Campbell spoke to the media. This is something I absolutely love. This is something that I talked about all this past season, nearly every single week, and it's been identified by Dan Campbell. He talked about Mahogany and switching the offensive line with Glasgow and all that. It's a small sample size of the start that he played. Talk about Mahogany. They're promising. They're encouraging. We do feel like he's a starter-level ability, but he's still a young player, so we still need to make sure that he is competition. I don't know that's a thought, man. We've talked about that and talked about switching the offensive line. Do you go back to the right side, or is it Mahogany left? Is it somebody who drafted? Switch, right? Dan Campbell said, you know you're going to do your best if these guys compete and see where they are at. Dan Campbell continue on and says, do we try Manu at guard? That's a thought, Campbell said. So we're going to try these guys to compete a little bit and move them around and see what's right, see where we're at. But, you know, it's not going to be set in stone. We're going to kind of take a leap of faith and push those reps and see if he can grow from there on. Do you do that, or do you keep him outside? Campbell said, thinking out loud. The three guards that are basically in competition right now to figure out what's going on with the 2025 offensive line, Giovanni Manu, Christian Mahogany, and Graham Glasgow. Why I like this statement that Dan Campbell said, and I 100% agree. Graham Glasgow did not play well on the right side of the offensive line this past season. He was successful in Detroit when he played on the left side, the left guard next to Taylor Decker. So if they could put Graham Glasgow over the left side, maybe his production will rise. You have Christian Mahogany, who can then go to the right side, and he did produce a little bit, like Dan Campbell said, on a level. It's just a small sample size. Giovanni Manu, looks like they can be placed in all over the place. So right now, those are the three players that is in contention for multiple spots, and I would fully expect the Lions to draft a guard early in this draft, probably the first 2 rounds to add more competition there. Kayode Osika, he's a backup role. The Lions are a offensive line built football team. They like that sort of, they want to keep the trenches strong for the offense. They want to have the bullies up front. And I appreciate Dan Campbell identifying the issue, and I think there is going to be changes that will be made to the offensive line. Hopefully, it's good changes that result in better protection for Jared Goff and opening up holes for that offensive line. Because if we have bad offensive line play, folks, we're going to have a bad season. Now, Bill Barnwell spoke to the media, and he's talking about a massive trade from ESPN. He says, the time for action is now. Outside of a hole at right guard, the Lions' only glaring weakness is at edge rusher across from Aiden Hutchinson, Barnwell wrote. Marcus Davenport is back, but he was limited to 6 games between 2023 and 2024 because of injuries. Hutchinson is recovering from a fractured leg, so we'll be asking a lot of him to immediately return to his premier form in 2025. The Lions also have Hutchinson, Jahmyr Gibbs, Brian Branch, rookie deals, giving them a window to go after an expensive addition. What was the trade proposal? Here was the trade. The Detroit Lions get Trey Hendrickson. The Bengals get this year's first-round pick, pick 28, and a fourth-round pick, 130. Trey Hendrickson, as you know, is a special player, 17.5 sacks this past season, but his age is 30, and he wants a big contract. Those are the problems for this trade, or those two things. Well, primarily one, contract. And when it comes to Trey Hendrickson, he wants to get paid boo-koo money. How many times have we said on here, how many times did Brad Holmes say, we're trying to save for the future for current players that we have on the roster? I don't think that the Lions are going to trade for Trey Hendrickson. I don't believe so because of the contract and what Brad Holmes has said. I believe the Lions are going to go into the draft, and that's how they're going to get their pass rusher. A big trade at this moment just seems extremely unlikely and unlike Brad Holmes' move. He has repeatedly told the media, that's why we didn't do big in free agency. That's why we didn't go out there and spend money, is because of future deals. You can like what he says or dislike it, but that's just reality of what Brad Holmes is saying. And so I don't believe a big move is going to be made. And I know I've taken heat for that all off season for this, saying that there's not going to be a big move. I didn't think they would go big in free agency. And a lot of people want that to occur. I just did not believe it because of what we have seen in free agency in the past and future contracts. I believe exactly what Brad Holmes is saying. I don't think he is BSing us. He's telling us the truth about the Trey Hendrickson deal. So what do you guys think about the latest Detroit Lions news and rumors? What do you think about that trade? Give that trade a grade in the comments below. With that said, folks, adios.